Welcome to episode 620 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and after what was an enjoyable watch along on Big Up, remember you can join me for all of those. I do tell you when I don't do a match, but I've been available all season for those. And if you want to help me make these 5 headlines, that's a good way to do it, because that's what today is. Another multi-goal win for FC Barcelona in the Liga this season, which means, yes, we're still doing 5 headlines. I'm also going to get a little bit of a break with this international break, as will FC Barcelona. So let's enjoy our last 5 headlines before the international break comes again. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-0 win over Alaves. Headline 1 is best case Lewandowski. I've been telling you for a while now that you should subscribe to the channel. It's a big help for all of that, because if you subscribe, you can see all of the hot takes that we've seen on Lewandowski basically get refuted. I last season had said I was pretty passive about really truly burying Lewandowski, and I think we were wrong to have buried Lewandowski completely. But we'll get to the goals in a second here, because the first thing that Barcelona did in this game was they did to themselves what they would wind up doing to Alaves for the rest of the contest. 4th minute in, an offside flag goes up. Lamine Yamal offside. He squared it to Raphinha for the goal, but it was wiped out. An early moment for Alaves to know that Barcelona were not playing around on the day. They weren't. Ferran Torres, unfortunately, in the 5th minute, though, already coming up limping and exits. Eric Garcia on for him. With that hamstring injury, we expect Ferran Torres to now be out for a few weeks. Fortunately for Barcelona, they have a lot of guys coming back, as we'll talk about in the second half and for post-game. And so I think they're going to be able to deal with the injury to Ferran Torres, but the Spanish national team will now have to bring up somebody in his stead. The 7th minute comes along, and that means the first goal for Barcelona. It's a Lewandowski header. Raphinha delivers right onto the head of Lewandowski with a lot of pace on this whipped-in ball. Abkar also on the wrong side of him. I don't know how much of a starter Abkar is for many of the teams around the Liga as a starting center back, but he's put in a difficult position to Marc Lewandowski. That's now 8 goals at this point for Lewandowski in the Liga. Only 1 of those came on a penalty, the rest coming on open play. And for as good as the header was, Lewandowski just kind of got to it. Yes, he had to redirect it on goal. That was difficult. But the delivery from Raphinha was perfect, right to the head of Lewandowski, where, again, he just had to redirect it, and it finds the back of the net. 15th minute comes along. Iñaki Peña didn't look too confident coming off his line, but he did get enough on it. But this game, even in a 3-0 win, even with the offside trap working tremendously, I think Iñaki Peña once again showed you, and I'll have examples throughout this match review, as to why Szczesny was signed, not in January, but was signed immediately, and why we could see Szczesny as a starter quicker than you might think. Why I know the club has been passive. I don't think they knew exactly what shape Szczesny was going to be in. I don't know if they could truly commit to the idea of Szczesny coming out of retirement and immediately taking over that starting spot. I think they were a little worried about registering him, but now that everything is approved, now that he's registered, I think quite quickly over the international break, the tune will change and he's going to be the starter, maybe even against Sevilla, which means he would also be eligible and prepared, I'd say, to start against Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. We'll have to see if he's ready in time for that. 20th minute, Balde, who I thought had a good day, one of his better days, I think, so far this season, cuts inside and then was smart enough to stay in that space. And I thought Barcelona did a really good job against Alaves, who did struggle in their medium and low block, where the minute they would vacate space and Barcelona player would move into that space, it was very intelligent, not total football, but just positional play for Barcelona to switch around. Raphinha then taking his spot there on the left, and Balde staying in that space for Nico Martinez, who missed the initial pass, but then Kubarsi with a 9.5 out of 10 pass. Beautiful diagonal on the ground into Balde. Just the decision making from Balde as he pushed forward into the penalty box, not the best. 22nd minute, then Balde gets the block here, and Pedri takes it, feeds Raphinha, and then Raphinha absolutely leaving the defender for dead on the wing. And then Lewandowski gets number 9 in the Liga on the year on the 2-on-1 counter, finishes it off, which then in total makes it, at that point, 10 goals and 2 assists for Lewandowski to start this season. That's why I've said best case scenario for Lewandowski. Who could have imagined 11 games in? Well, all right, let's do the next headline. Then we'll talk about Lewandowski in the macro. because headline 2 is hat trick history. 24th minute, Inigo Martinez steps up and plays Raphinha over the top. It is blocked by the keeper. Pedri got a chance. Lewandowski got a chance for his third, but it's the 24th minute. Barcelona are humming. It looks like they're going to get a third much quicker than Alaves are going to get there first. Balde, as I mentioned, finding plenty of space by beating the first man and then cutting to the inside. So that really opened up a lot as far as the line breaking pass, then going from the center backs all the way up forward, because Balde became a part of the attack in the midfield and overwhelmed Alaves in the middle of the park there with the numerical advantage. The 3-0 comes in the 32nd minute. Speaking of that numerical advantage, with Balde then pushing up on the left side in between the lines, that meant there was more opportunities on the right side for the three midfielders of Pedri, Casado, and Eric Garcia to work with that space as well. And this is basically double credit for Eric Garcia and Casado on the third goal. Eric Garcia disguising the final pass so well, pushed forward into that space that I was mentioning, because Casado then dropped back between the center backs, and then it was Casado's line-breaking pass into Eric between the lines. So it was Casado's initial pass that broke the midfield line or bypassed the midfield. And then it was Eric Garcia who played it around the back line, beating the offside trap into the half space for Lewandowski. And then Lewandowski, because he is completely in form, maybe the greatest striker of this generation from 2018 to 2024, deserved his Ballon d'Or, and still at 36 years old has something. And the hat trick history he has is that it's his first Liga hat trick, not for Barcelona, but his first hat trick in La Liga action. And he does it now with 12 goals in 11 games. As I said in the first headline, best case scenario start for Lewandowski. The idea that he was totally over the hill was premature. And as I keep repeating, he said in that press conference, and I know that we give the credit to Germans for being very matter of fact in the way they speak, but a lot of times Lewandowski is a very similar way. Again, he played in Germany for a long time. I think he communicates with the media. He is Polish. He communicates with the media in a very matter of fact way. And now we can truly and honestly believe him that he was kind of just hurt. And somebody brought it up in the watch along that I think is a really great question, that moving forward for Lewandowski, has his start to this season been so good that now we're worrying and wondering about next season and how Barcelona will worry about their number 9 moving forward because of how good the 36-year-old Lewandowski has been. If he keeps up this pace, he's on pace to hit 40 goals, which I thought was unimaginable. I was saying if he hits 33 to 35, that means Barcelona might have won the Liga, and he has scored enough for Barcelona to have done quite a bit of winning if the defense was good enough. And now he's on pace for about 40. The sky is absolutely the limit for Barcelona if Lewandowski is going to be in this kind of form this season. And unlike younger players where you say, I don't know if he can keep this up, there's no reason in his career when he starts this well not to believe that he might be able to keep this up this season. Really good stuff from Lewandowski this year. Headline 3 is climbing confidence in Casado. Let's talk about Casado again. We talked about him for the third goal, but 43rd minute, he did the other side of the stuff on the other side of the ball, winning the ball back twice in Alaves' half, right there before halftime, basically in their final third. And then Raphinha's ball zipped past Lewandowski, but again, credit to Casado for making that happen. 45th minute, the cross came in. Tony Martinez in behind Cubarsí. Inaki Peña rooted to his spot on the line. Didn't look great from Barcelona, but VAR not even coming to the rescue here. He was offside, so VAR coming to the rescue because Tenaglia on the cross was offside on the wing, and that's going to be one when they watch in film I was going to be frustrated with, because Tenaglia was basically standing there on the touchline when he was offside, and there was nothing worse than standing in your position already offside. Then right before halftime, Pedri did fluff one at the back post, but another tremendous delivery on a set piece from Raphinha. Now let's do some Raphinha praise here. We talked about him in the last game against Young Boys. He was tremendous in that contest. Already has a hat trick for himself in the Liga this year. But 11 games now, 11 goals plus assists on those goal contributions. I said if he gets 20, that's a good season for Raphinha. That's kind of where you want him to be at. He was at 21 last season, but now he's already matched more than half of his goal plus assist goal contributions from last season. And here's my hot take for Raphinha. It's hard when he's having such a good season to repeat the same thing week in and week out. So here's my hot take, that if he was German, and I say this because I do compare him a little bit to what we've seen from Serge Gnabry when Bayern Munich is humming. So that's kind of where I'm getting this. Or Leroy Sané when he was with Man City, now he's with Bayern Munich. Kind of a similar idea. Those guys aren't necessarily, now a little bit more Sané, but those aren't necessarily players that are beating other guys 1v1. And I think on the international dialogue or whatever, I think from a global audience, they do get praise, but they don't get an absurd amount of praise for their individual brilliance, the way that Lamine Yamal does, or Vinny Jr. does, or other, again, dribbly wingers do. But if Raphinha was German, just because of how good he has been better than Gnabry and Sane have been to start this season. I think for Bayern Munich, they have had a lot of players starting really well, but Raphinha has been one of Barcelona's best three players to start the year. I think already you have to say, I mean, Casado has an argument, but I think the first start of this year, it's so hard. I want to say Koundé, but then I'm saying, well, Lewandowski and Raphinha and Lamine Yamal, Barcelona have scored so many goals. And I think you start by talking about those three. And an honorable mention for Inigo Martinez as well. There've been too many good players for Barcelona. So let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or hit me up on social media if you're listening on the podcast, who Barcelona, before this international break, who their best three players have been to start this year. I think Raphinha has to be on that list. So again, my hot take is, if Raphinha was German, he would be praised and spoken about much more to start this year by a global audience. But I think because he's Brazilian, because he's not Vinny Jr., we don't really talk about him from a global perspective in the same way. But gosh, he has been one of the best wingers in world football for the job that he's being asked to do, which is very different from Lamine Yamal. That's why I'm praising them in very different ways. Headline 4 is Ansu looking more like Ansu. Not too many highlights to talk about for the second half, because Alaves started the second half rather well. They hit the post off a corner. That was their best chance of the game. 60th minute, Alaves still buzzing, but still offside. That is going to be a theme here, because for the totality of the game, Alaves, 11 total shots, just 2 on goal. Barcelona, 14 total shots, 9 shots on target, telling you the difference in quality in front of goal in any other team's final third. 67th minute, Lamine Yamal and Hector Fort come off for Ansu Fati and Jules Koundé. And Hector Fort, I didn't really mention him. He got his first start of the season. He was really just the one sub, I guess you want to call it, for that starting 11, because even when Ferran Torres went out, the guy who would have been starting if Hansi Flick had instead begun with that 4-3-3 with just a single pivot, with Casado also, as I had mentioned, having the ability to drop in between the center backs. So Hector Fort really just the one rotation piece stepping into the starting lineup. And I thought he was better in the second half. I thought he was very defensive in the first half, but Barcelona were also scoring goals like gangbusters. And Lamine Yamal was frustrated that he got subbed out in the second half, but made sense to me. He's constantly being double teamed. It's not just a man marking thing for Lamine Yamal. It's a constant double team, which is why there's so much space created for Eric Garcia and for Alejandro Balde in the middle of the park. And Pedri and Casado as well had a lot of room to work with in the middle of the field. And that's because Lamine Yamal is constantly dealing with double teams. And if Hector Fort isn't overlapping, which is what he wasn't really doing in that first half, then Lamine Yamal is not going to have the space he really needs to thrive, which again is fine. It means that space being created for everyone else. But Hector Fort offensively, much better, I thought, in the second half. 1 or 2 overlapping runs for him that we didn't see in the first. So I thought it was a good day for Hector Fort. And again, a clean sheet when he came off the field. That's a success. Barcelona also in the second half, I think Alaves were able to find a little bit more, because I don't know if Barcelona necessarily wanted to throw themselves into it. The game did get a bit muddy there. 13 fouls from Alaves, and some of them were a little nasty there. And that put them on the front foot, as well as the fact that Barcelona weren't winning the second balls. I didn't think that was very helpful for them either. Obviously, if you're going to lose the second ball, then Alaves is going to be able to come back on the counter pretty quickly. Fortunately for Barcelona, as I said, the sheer number of offside calls, while it didn't mess with the flow of the game, I think that's what kind of gummed Barcelona up a little more in the second half. Alaves also weren't scoring goals because they were constantly offside. 70th minute, a 10 of 10 on this tackle from Casado in the rain, sliding in. An image of Casado for this season so far. Awesome stuff from him. Then let's talk some Ansu. 74th minute, a chance for Ansu Fati, not off by much. And Severa, this says a lot more about the stop that he made with the arm than it did about Ansu getting this one on goal. This one should have been a goal. And against most goalkeepers on their day, probably would have been, but Severa getting to it enough with the stop. And then the 75th minute, less than a minute later, Lewandowski almost had 4. Ansu almost had his first, just hitting the post off the small deflection from the keeper. Positive sign from Ansu. And I think we're now building to a point where the next time that we see Ansu for more than like 20 minutes in a game or 25 minutes in a game, we won't have to just say, hey, this is a positive. We can actually talk about a result. Ansu did make one mistake in the game, though, that I think Hansi Flick won't be happy with, and that was the pass back into trouble that Inaki Peña had to save. And maybe Inaki Peña's best save of the day here. But the positive, again, I'm making this compliment sandwich for Ansu, was he had the chance. made that big mistake. But the end of that compliment sandwich is that I think, again, moving forward, we've seen where positionally Ansu can really thrive, and that is with Balde pushed forward because Barcelona were controlling the match and up by 3. But by playing him so high and quite central, putting him in around the box where he can get a shot off one time or also play somebody else on one time. That is the best version of Ansu Fati when he's able to get in the box and you kind of asking him to defend a little bit there on the left side. But when you're controlling a match like this is the ideal situation for Ansu. And then finally, headline 5 is offside until the international break. Well, this is Alaves, who aren't really setting anybody on international duty. But for the Barcelona players, they go into the national break having played an offside line to the best of their ability. Here comes De Jong and Gerard Martin on for Nico Martinez and Balde in the 81st minute. And in the 85th minute, this summed up the whole game for Alaves. Offside for their 11th time on what could have again been the first goal for them in the game. The high line for Barcelona was perfect on the day. And for context, Real Madrid has gotten their opponent offside just 10 times all season long. And so Barcelona, yes, high line, whether they're dying by the high line against Osasuna, which again, I'll make a big excuse for Barcelona because Sergio Dominguez and Gerard Martin will likely not be starting this season in a big, quote unquote, big match for Barcelona. They started together against Osasuna, and that was the one time when the high line, didn't really work to good effect. Now Barcelona is away for the international break for 2 weeks. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, because the bright side is that while Ferran Torres is going to be resting up and hopefully can shake off that hamstring injury in a few weeks, likely it'll be Dani Olmo, Fermin Lopez, and Gavi to hopefully look forward to. Yes, I said Gavi, to hopefully look forward to after the international break in some ways. Again, you might have them all for 15 or 20 minutes coming off the bench, and hopefully it's a healthier De Jong who might be able to play 90 minutes coming out of the international break after another 2 weeks as well. Because Barcelona will have to have all hands on deck coming out of the international break. It's high gear against Sevilla, basically to warm up, and then it's Bayern Munich and it's Real Madrid. And that kickstarts the most important part of the fall, the first half of the season that week, certainly, against Bayern and against Real Madrid. Maybe not necessarily for the Liga race. Barcelona up by 3. So even if they lose to Real Madrid, well, let's see about Sevilla, but even if they lose to Real Madrid, then they're even on points. But obviously, you don't want to lose head-to-head to your rival in Real Madrid. But as I said, it does kickstart the most important part of the first half of the season. And Barcelona look like they're healthy, they're in form, they're doing well, and hopefully this international break doesn't throw everything into chaos. But with Hansi Flick so far, I trust in him, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think mentally, in between the ears, this team has been as good as you could ask of them, led by Raphinha, who has earned that captain's armband, as we again saw today in that 3-0 win over Alaves. Remember, please subscribe over this international break. Do it right now, because I'm going to have some special content that I've been working on that I'm saving for the international break. So again, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss that. But I also will put everything on the podcast feed as well. So if you were listening, thank you so much. As always, listening to the Barcelona podcast. If you're watching, again, hello to you. And don't forget that coming out against Sevilla after the international break, I will also have the watch along on Big Up. So remember to become a member over there. You don't need a promo code anymore. Just get on there, make your username, and you can join me on that. It's for the public. It's for everybody. So again, that's on Big Up. I think I did all the sponsors I needed to, other than, yes, $3 on Patreon. If you join the Patreon, then you can come on the watch-alongs with a microphone and a camera. And just by being a Patreon for as low as $3, you could be a guest. You could talk to me live on the thing, not in the chat, but you can actually talk to me with your camera and your microphone on screen. So that can be a bit of fun for the Patreons. So again, heading into the national break, it has been a while since I have enjoyed the start of a season as much as I've enjoyed this one. So hopefully you don't lose that momentum. I don't lose that momentum. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.